In Act 2, Scene 2, the murder of Duncan takes place. The murder takes place off stage, so we do not see the murder happen. What we see instead is the way the Macbeths react to it. They walk on stage, Macbeth first, followed by Lady Macbeth later in the scene, covered in blood. It is a very bloody scene, and we watch them react to the way it has affected them. When the scene first opens, Lady Macbeth is alone on stage and she is waiting for Macbeth to finish doing his part. She explains that she has drugged the drinks and left the guards there ready for Macbeth to go do what he has to do. But since Lady Macbeth is alone on stage, we need to watch the difference between the way she behaves when she's alone versus the way she behaves when Macbeth is on stage with her, because we hear different tones in her voice and we hear her saying different things. She'll admit things to the audience that she does not admit to her husband. So, as you listen to this first part, think about how this compares to the Lady Macbeth that we heard in Act 1.
That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire. Hark! Oh, peace! It was the owl that shrieked. The fatal bellman which gives the sternest good night. He is about it. The doors are open and the surfeited grooms do mock their charge with snores. I have drugged their possets, that death and nature do contend about them whether they live or die. Alack! I'm afraid they have awaked and 'tis not done. The attempt and not the deed confounds us. Hark! I laid their daggers ready, he could not miss him. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it.
So before Macbeth enters, I just want us to catch that line right there, because we see a couple of different things. We see her go through several emotions here for a minute. She at first says that she has been made bold by probably drinking some of the alcohol she gave the guards before she poisoned it. And then, as soon as she says that, she says, "Hark, peace, it was the owl." And she seems a little startled by the sound of the owl shrieking. And so then she says, "I've drugged their possets, I've done my part." When she hears Macbeth within, she is also startled by that. She doesn't know it is Macbeth. She just hears a sound. She hears someone say, "Who's there?" And she says, "Oh, I'm afraid they've awakened," and it's not done. So she's worried that the guards woke up or they got caught in the act, and she is worried. So she goes back and forth here between being courageous and being afraid. She says at one point, "I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss them." And so for that minute, she's kind of the Lady Macbeth that we saw in Act 1, where she's saying, I don't think Macbeth can do this. She thinks that, geez, did he not even find the dagger? Like, she's frustrated here with her husband and what she sees as him maybe not succeeding. But then, just immediately after, she jumps back to, "Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I would have done it." So when she says he, she means Duncan. And that means while she was looking at Duncan laying there sleeping, he reminded her of her father, which reveals to us, I don't know if she was supposed to stab him, but she said she was thinking about it. And then she realized Duncan reminded her of her father. She reveals to us here weakness. She reveals here some sentimentality. And those are exactly the kinds of things that she was calling upon the spirits to take away from her in the unsex me speech. But here she is demonstrating that maybe they're not entirely gone. But now, I'm going to clarify this is when she's alone. Now Macbeth enters, and we'll watch how she responds to him and also pay attention to how Macbeth is responding to what he has just done. He enters the stage covered in blood and holding the bloody daggers.
My husband.
I have done the deed. Didst thou not hear a noise?
I heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. Did you not speak?
When?
No.
As I descended?
I?
Who lies in the second chamber?
Donald Bain.
Ah, this is a sorry
A
sight.
foolish thought to see a sorry sight.
This one did laugh in sleep, and one cried murder, that they did wake each other. I stood and heard them, but they did say their prayers and addressed them again to sleep.
There are two lodged together.
One cried, God bless us, and amen the other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands, listening their fear. I could not say amen when they did say God bless us.
Consider it not so deeply.
But wherefore could I not pronounce amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat.
These deeds must not be thought after these ways, so it will make us mad.
They thought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more. Macbeth does murder sleep, the innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care. The death of each day's life, sore labour's bath, balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course, chief nourisher and life's feast.
What do you mean?
Still it cried, sleep no more to all the house. Lambs have murdered sleep, and therefore Porter shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more.
Who was it that thus cried? Why, worthy Thane, to unbend your noble strength to think so brain-sickly of things. Go, get some water and wash this filthy witness from your hand. Why did you bring these daggers from the place? They must lie there. Go, carry them and smear the sleepy grooms with blood.
I'll go no more. I'm afraid to think what I have done. Look on't again, I dare not.
Infirm of purpose, give me the daggers. The sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. 'Tis the eye of child that fears a painted devil. If he do bleed, I'll gild the faces of the grooms withal, for it must seem their guilt.
All right. So you hear their interaction here a little bit. How would you describe the way Macbeth is acting here? You can hear it in his voice and in the way he's kind of repeating things over and over. He sounds very upset. He sounds shaken by what he has done. He becomes obsessed with sleep. He is talking about sleep and prayers. And so, first of all, I want to point out one cried murder and they did wake each other. They were saying their prayers. I could not say amen when they did say God bless us. He says, I was most in need of blessing and I could not say amen. So he hears Malcolm and Donalbain in their chamber. Malcolm and Donalbain, of course, being Duncan's sons, and he hears them in there saying their nightly prayers, and he tries to say amen. When they say, God bless us, he tries to say amen because he feels in need of blessing. Of course, what he's really in need of is forgiveness. But what he's saying here is that he was unable to pray for forgiveness. And he really, really needed forgiveness. He wanted to feel forgiven. And so, of course, the opposite of being forgiven is being held guilty, being held responsible. And that's how he's feeling right now in this moment. We also see here that Lady Macbeth when Macbeth shows up, she becomes the strong one for a minute. She says things like, that's a foolish thing to say. It's a sorry sight. And when he's going on about sleep and stuff, she says, consider it not so deeply. She says, these deeds must not be thought after these ways. It will make us mad. So she tries to get him to stop thinking about it. And she's also, of course, kind of talking to herself in those moments. Macbeth talking about sleep. There's this really long, well, there are two different things about sleep. Macbeth calls sleep the innocent sleep, but then Lady Macbeth later equates sleep to death. And so there are some different connotations there in the way they see it. I really want to unpack this long list that Macbeth gives us about what sleep means to him, because he has imagined that he heard a voice cry, sleep no more. So whereas in the previous scene, he was hallucinating a dagger, now he is hearing things. And what he hears them say is that Macbeth will sleep no more. And since sleep to him is equated to innocence, he also goes through this long list. Sleep, the innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care, the death of each day's life, sore labor's bath, the balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course. And so a balm to hurt minds means it's healing. It's like medicine. Knitting up the raveled sleeve of care. So if your sleeve is all raveled and frayed and torn up, and then someone knits it and fixes it, so it knits up means it fixes like the frayed parts of your mind. And then he says, great nature's second course. Sleep is natural. Lack of sleep is not. He also says sore labor's bath. So this is again healing or relaxation. It is peaceful, whereas life is not. And so these are all the things that he's saying he will no longer have. Since Macbeth has murdered sleep and Macbeth shall sleep no more, he will no longer have this healing medicine, this rest for his frayed mind, this natural healing and relaxation. Basically saying he will never sleep well again. So he fears he will never sleep soundly again. And we will see him say things about this later in the play as well. But Lady Macbeth just keeps saying, you're going to become brain sick if you keep thinking about these things. And then she tells him, go get some water to wash it away. We're going to talk about the symbolism of water here in just a minute. She also says, uh-oh, you've still got the daggers. At this point, Lady Macbeth realizes that Macbeth is still holding the bloody daggers that he was supposed to leave on the guards. He says, you get back up there and finish your job. She tells him, go up there and smear those grooms with blood like you were supposed to. It has to seem their guilt. We can't be caught holding these bloody daggers. But Macbeth is too afraid. He refuses to go back up there. And he says he's too afraid to look on what he has done. At this point, Lady Macbeth is a bit hypocritical because she says the sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. It's the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. So again, here she's calling him a child, pointing out that he's being silly, being so afraid. But she says the sleeping and the dead. She equates sleeping with death. And recall that at the beginning of this scene, she said, if he had not resembled my father as he slept, I would have done it. So she too was kind of afraid of a painted devil at that point. So she's being hypocritical and calling out her husband's fears when they are the same things that she feared. At this point, Lady Macbeth exits. She says, "Fine then, I'll do it myself." And she gets those bloody daggers and heads back upstairs, where she is going to gild the groom's faces with blood. She says, if he do bleed, she's going to go into the room where Duncan lies murdered. She's going to plunge her hands into his bloody wounds and cover her own hands with blood so that she can go out and smear blood on the faces of the guards. Macbeth is left alone with a knocking sound that begins to bother him, and we hear this knocking throughout the scene.
Whence is that knocking? How is it with me when every noise appalls me? Oh, what hands are here? Ah, they pluck out mine eyes. Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand? No, this my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red.
My hands are of your colour, but I shame to wear a heart so white. I hear a knocking at the south entry. Retire we to our chamber. A little water clears us of this deed. How easy is it then? Your constancy had left you unattended.
Oh,
Hark, more knocking. Get on your nightgown, lest occasion call us and show us to be watchers. Be not lost so poorly in your thoughts.
to know my deed, 'twere best not know myself. Wake, Duncan, with thy knocking, I would thou couldst.
All right. So we have now here an important symbolism of water. Water, of course, symbolizes cleanliness. It symbolizes purity, purification. And also, we have that it can wash away guilt. It can literally wash away evidence. And so we also have to consider here that blood symbolizes guilt. So when people say he's caught red-handed or he's got blood on his hands, the idea there is that there's evidence there. The blood represents evidence, the blood represents guilt. And so water then can wash away the blood, literally. It can also metaphorically wash away their guilt. And Lady Macbeth references it first before she goes up to get the daggers. And she tells Macbeth to go wash his hands, just go wash away the filthy witness. So while she's gone, Macbeth goes to try to wash his hands. And he says, "Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand?" So can all the water in the ocean wash my hands? Literally, yes. But he says no. He says that his hands, his bloody hands, will turn the entire ocean red. And so, no, metaphorically, the guilt will stay forever. He says there is not enough water in the ocean to wash this away. So there is not enough water to free him of his guilt. Meaning he feels so guilty that it will last forever. Then Lady Macbeth comes back, and the first thing she says is, first of all, now she's covered in blood because she just got blood all over her hands on purpose to get the guards bloody. "My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white." So not only is she pointing out that she is not worried. She's not afraid of the sight of blood. But she also shames Macbeth for being afraid or bothered by the sight of blood. And then her response is, a little water clears us of this deed. How easy this is. She says exactly the opposite of Macbeth. She says just a little water will wash it away easily. She is not guilty feeling at this moment. At the very end, this very important line, when the knocking continues and the knocking continues, Macbeth says, wake Duncan with thy knocking. I wish you could. He is expressing beyond just guilt for what he did. He's wishing he could go back in time and take it away. He regrets that he ever did it. He wishes that Duncan was still alive. And that's important to note here at the end of the scene. His immediate response to having killed Duncan is regret.